Hi, and welcome to Low Carb Me and You. I'm Alexander. Today we're going to make that perfect juicy meatloaf with a tangy keto Carolina Mustard BBQ Sauce. It takes quite a bit of practice to get your meatloaf just right. Work on it too much and it's a dense sausage. Not enough and it'll fall apart. But don't worry, I've done all the work for you. Just follow along and you'll be able to do it in no time. We'll get started on the low carb and keto version of the Carolina barbecue sauce. Mustard is the key ingredient, with apple cider vinegar, some ketchup, erythritol, cayenne, salt, and pepper. All ingredients are detailed in the description. The Carolina barbecue sauce, or golden barbecue sauce, gets its typical flavor and color from the mustard. Your best bet is a mild mustard, but you can opt for a spicier version. We'll be using this sauce to cover the meatloaf and as a condiment for serving. Start off by melting your erythritol in a saucepan on medium heat. Once melted, add the cayenne and whisk it all together. This will allow the cayenne to develop its flavors. Then add all of the other ingredients: the ketchup, apple cider vinegar, mustard, salt, and pepper, mixing it all while adding. Switch to a whisk if that's more convenient, and let it simmer for a few minutes on low heat. Make sure to keep whisking, as it has a tendency to erupt when the air bubbles get too big. You might get some lovely yellow spots all around. If you want a thinner sauce, you can add a bit of water. A couple of tablespoons will do. You can make this sauce cold as well, but it'll be a bit sharper in taste and you will have to mix well to dissolve the erythritol. Either way, it'll taste great. After 5 minutes of simmering, it's ready. Make sure to taste. If it's too spicy, you can add a bit of sweetener to tone it down. Now that it's finger licking good, we're going to transfer it to a bowl and set it aside for later. Now let's make that perfect meatloaf. Our shopping list contains minced beef, bacon, an onion, cheddar, eggs, mustard, ketchup, salt, and pepper. Before we can mix all of the ingredients, we'll need to do a bit of prep. Start with your onion. We want a fine dice, small bits that distribute easily when mixing the meatloaf, and so we don't feel like we're eating onion later on. Similarly, we'll also want to finely grate the cheddar. Use cheddar straight from the fridge, as it gets soft quickly, which makes grating it very hard. By having finely shredded cheddar, it'll incorporate nicely with the meatloaf, without having actual streaks of cheese. Lastly, we're going to mince the bacon. You can do this with a knife, but easiest is with a food processor. When using pre-sliced bacon, like I have here, take the slices apart. That'll make the processing easier and prevent lumps of uncut bacon. Just run the food processor for 15 to 30 seconds, which should be enough to mince the bacon. The bacon is going to enrich the flavor of the meatloaf as well as add some additional fat and moisture. Time to mix it all up and get just the right consistency for a meatloaf. Add all your ingredients to a large mixing bowl. Minced beef, pepper, salt, mustard, ketchup, diced onion, shredded cheddar, minced bacon, and the eggs. When you add the ingredients, try to spread the spices a bit. They'll help with spreading the flavor and reduces the risk of overworking the meat. Get in with your hands and mix it all up. Make sure to spread it all evenly. No lumps of cheese or onion to be found anywhere. Keep kneading until your mixture is starting to stick to your hands. This is the point where the myosin is starting to develop. We want just a bit of that, as it helps keep everything together. But if you mix it too long, it'll become dense, like a sausage. This is that sweet spot for a delicious meatloaf. Get a big roasting pan and line it with baking paper. Transfer all of the meat and shape it into a loaf. You could also use a loaf pan, but then the meat will cook in its own juices, which will actually dry out the meat more. And you can't get as much of the barbecue sauce on top, which is what really elevates this meatloaf from great to scrumptious. Get your barbecue sauce and start covering the meatloaf. Don't be shy about it. We want a nice thick layer covering all of the exposed meat, so not just on top, but the sides as well. This layer will keep more of the juices locked in during the oven roasting, not to mention the flavor that goes into the loaf. Just use a spoon and a brush, or your fingers for lack thereof, to cover the whole thing. You'll use about a third of your Carolina barbecue sauce. The rest is for serving. All that's left is to cook it in the oven. We'll do this in 2 parts. The first 30 minutes will cook at 190 Celsius or 370 Fahrenheit. After that, we'll crank up the heat to 220 Celsius or 430 Fahrenheit to finish it off. The higher heat will result in a darker and drier outside, which is what you want. The meatloaf is cooked when it reaches an internal temperature of 70 degrees Celsius or 160 Fahrenheit. Don't let it get too high, as that'll dry out the meat. Once done, you'll want to let it rest for about 10 minutes before serving. This will settle the juices and help firm up the meat for easier cutting. The recipe makes for 10 servings, but it entirely depends on how thick of a slice you like. You can eat this straight from the oven, but it also makes for great cold cuts. Fantastic to quickly meet your daily macros with a snack or lunch. The nutritional breakdown per serving of the meatloaf, which includes the barbecue sauce used in covering the meat, but not the sauce served alongside, is 1.1 grams of carbs, 29 grams of protein, 23 grams of fat, and about 330 calories. The nutrition of the barbecue sauce is per 100 milliliters. 3.9 grams of carbs, 5 grams of protein, 6 grams of fat, and about 96 calories. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Stay cooking, stay low carb, and let your taste buds dance with delight.